And I invite Mr. Rapley to get this conversation started.
Yes, Mayor. This was a request by Mr. Gregory and Ms. Winger as far as providing this information to the City Council. I'd actually prepared a formal report, or was going to prepare a formal report for the agenda, but I was out last week. So I've basically crafted this, and I can read it to you. And once we're completed, I can provide it formally to the council via email at some point from that standpoint. But I've actually broken this up into, again, background as city manager and my understanding of our city fiscal condition upon arrival, the rationale of proposing financial statements moving forward for us as staff with council to update them on the financial statements, cost of service, the contract versus full-time, and some next steps that really need to be discussed and moved forward with after evaluation some of our fiscal policies from that standpoint. When I took the city manager position back in late February, I met with the auditors who were here on site, and they basically asked me in a nice way if there was any misappropriation of funds. So that raised a red flag to me from that standpoint. So I was told by the auditors they could not continue working on the bank reconciliations because they were not reconciled from August 2017 through January 2018. Previously, these duties were performed by the previous finance person involved. It is my understanding in August, the previous city manager had contracted a financial consultant over a few months, which was Ms. Barr at the time. I think she came in and helped with a little bit of reconciliation, aided the previous city manager in the budget developments. I know her work time frame was kind of sporadic. I know she wasn't here every week. I think she worked a total of 170 hours at the same rate that I'm providing a rate to Ms. Fegans. It is my understanding that her experience involved automated accounting process versus manual entry, which involved our current financial system from that standpoint. Ms. Fegan and I decided, well, I'll take a step back too. In my discussion with Debbie Frazier, our auditor, she recommended that we bring someone in pretty quickly. She referenced Ms. Fegan as someone to bring in. I actually consulted with her previous informer, Bill Hill over at Chavano Park, who gave her a good recommendation from that standpoint. I brought her in, and she assumed some or a part of all the interim finance duties at that time. Again, we were looking at reconciliation that hadn't been done in 7 months. So moving forward, Ms. Fegan and I, as far as the financials, decided council approval. We agreed that the first meeting of the month does not allow enough time to process the previous month. Invoices are still being processed up to the 10th of the month. Bank statements must be reconciled, and then cover sheets, which now includes analysis of departments' operating budgets. We discussed council taking formal action as approval of the monthly financials, and they should not be augmented after this action. And it's been documented and noted that it's been a long-standing practice that previously in the past that this report was presented and approved by council at that time. At that point, we decided that second meetings of the month, which may not always be held, we discussed that including financials from 2 months prior at the first meeting of the month would ensure that we stayed on schedule. Obviously, we had conveyed this to our city secretary, Ms. Gonzalez, when we added April financials to the June 12th. At that point, May would be included for the first meeting of July. June would be included in the first meeting in August, and concurrently the same as follows. The April financials, which were tabled at the June 10th meeting, to be included as a regular item on the June 26th meeting so the presentation could be made and questions and answers. However, it was put under consent and approved from that standpoint. The main focus of Ms. Fegan's work here for the city in March and April were bank reconciliations of 7 months for 12 accounts, reviewing balance sheets, issues, preparing needed year-end entries, obtaining needed information and data for auditors, processing auditors, providing year-end entries, evaluating procedures, and assisting staff with month-end requirements where needed. She also was very helpful in the analysis of identifying issues we currently have by not having our financial system integrated with other operations. As indicated in the final audit report, material weakness in internal controls, the report indicates the reconciliation had not been done since August, 7 months. Any financials may have been brought forward for council's review and approval through year into December. Whether they were submitted on time may have not been an accurate reflection of the budget. As indicated in the auditor's report on May 8th meeting, it is indicated that the reconciliation had been done through March of this year. Ms. Fegans came in, corrected journal entries, reconciled 7 months in about a month's time frame, assisted the auditors in preparation, and has provided further training to Ms. Davis on certain financial processes. She was able to work through our system, our financial system with Assist, since most of the cities she's worked in and served as finance director utilized multiple accounting softwares from that standpoint. Since completion of the audit, she has continued to perform bank reconciliations, perform monthly and quarterly journal entries, prepared more detailed financial statements for April and May, worked on various agenda items with financial advisement, and has already aided in the development of the FY19 budget. She has already been working with departments to analyze current operating budget costs and looking for fiscal improvements moving forward. Under the cost of service, Ms. Fegans has been averaging about 25, 26 hours a week at a rate same as Ms. Bars that was done through a professional service agreement at $50 a rate. Over that 4 months, the cost is close to about $20,000, which is of contracted salary. This is in contrast to having a full-time position with benefits at a rate of $43 per hour. This would be closer to a cost of about $27,000 so far in the budget, which is about a $6,000 savings right now. As I mentioned, there's other additional fiscal matters that need to be looked at. At some point, internally, we need to look at having written financial policies and purchasing, internal control oversight, review of account payable processing by department heads, and a cash handling policy.
Mr. Ryan, I'd like to make a statement right before council gets into talking about this. I'm going to call an executive meeting regarding previous accounting practices and some information that has been brought to my attention regarding how those practices were carried out. And it is not acceptable or suitable to talk about it in an open forum like this because it does involve previous employees. So with that said, obviously move ahead on your discussion and what you would like to talk about, but I am going to call an executive session when it meets your calendar schedules.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Mr. Rapley, it was my understanding that the finance director, the one who retired, was on a flat salary, not an hourly basis.
Who was on a flat salary?
Unless you go back and extrapolate. Beg pardon?
Who was on a flat salary? I'm sorry?
Suzanne.
Suzanne Riley was on a flat salary because I remember when we raised her salary to $50,000 a year.
Well, right now, what's in the
Went to
budget
70.
for the finance director is about $72,000. That's with benefits.
Went to 70. We raised her
Went to
twice.
70? Well, it was a flat salary.
With the benefits, it comes out to about $90,000 as a package.
But it was a flat salary thing. It wasn't an hourly basis as you are comparing. But I understand what you're talking about.
I just broke down with benefits that comes out to about $43 an hour. So there is a budget savings by not having a full-time position with benefits right now.
Thank you.
Ms. Winger?
Mr. Rapley, you said you have this written out?
I'm sorry?
You said you wrote the report out?
Well, I've crafted it here, and I was going to get it to council. I was actually out last week.
That's fine. I think that would be fine, just if you could just give us copies of that.
That's fine.
I don't need to ask any questions. If I have any questions, I can ask them later.
That was my full intention, to prepare a formal report. I mean, if I wasn't out of the office last week, I would have provided it within the packet itself.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Swinger. Ms. McLean, did you have any comments regarding this?
Thank you for the detailed report. Thank you, Ms. Fagans, for all your hard work getting our accounting back up to order and helping create the list of policies that we need to consider as a council to protect our city's money and be good stewards.
Thank you, Ms. McLean. Ms. Scott, did you have any comments or questions regarding this?
I also wanted to thank the city manager for a very thorough report, and Ms. Fagan for really putting it together and explaining the process of what goes into a financial report for the council. Thank you.
Mr. McCormick, did you have any comments or questions for the item, please?
No, I thank you for your report, Mr. Rapley. In my case, it probably won't make a whole bunch of sense to me until I see it on paper.
Sure.
So I'll have time to look at it and make a little sense of it. But I do appreciate your efforts. I don't know.
Again, I had full intention of having a formal report based on not only what she's been doing, but the status of the fiscal condition, not only when I walked in as city manager, but what improvements have been made so far.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And while we're at it, I also appreciate your comprehensive reports that you've been supplying on the various department activities. So thank you very much for your efforts.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to echo all of that, but I'm also going to thank Laura. Laura, as you know, we've been meeting for the past, time you've been here, and we've also been uncovering, not uncovering them in a bad way, just learning some facts that I think that council will be surprised at when we actually move forward, and that's backed up by fact. That takes a lot of fortitude and a lot of guts to bring that forward. And I think that once council sees that, it'll kind of open the light on some things. Mr. Rapley, again, thank you for your hard work on this. I know that you're very busy man these days. How's that?
Well, no problem, Mayor. I was out of the office on a planned family vacation, but I still want to keep my professional.
I hope you enjoyed yourself while you were gone. Okay.
Every day, Mayor.
God bless your heart. All right, so moving along, let's go ahead and, this was the update associated with the financial reports and assisted. Did everybody kind of get everything they wanted to know on this before we move forward? Okay. Well, then, it doesn't, did everybody get the information they needed before we move on to item number 15? That is not an action item. So,
Mr. Mayor, I've got a headache like I've never had before, and I'd like to request to leave. I feel very bad.
of course, we wouldn't want anything to happen.
Mayor, if you'd like the next item where I was going to give an update on the utilities, I still plan to provide council a formal report. And if there's any questions on that item, we can move it to the next. But staff is working with those contractors, and actually, as of today,
I don't have any questions,
We
Mr. Mayor.
put-
I think that at this point may be a good time to defer the verbal discussion to the written report that we receive later on from Mr.
Are
Rapley.
you happy? That'll be good with
Happy
you?
with that if
just
everybody else
just so
is.
you know, Mayor,
Or would you be happy with that until the next meeting, or until we might be able to bring it up in the executive session to have a written report based on
Well, he says,
our tour?
I think he's already got one.
well,
prepared.
I was going to cover sort of the timeline and history, but I just wanted to let you know that we put the contractor on notice today
Okay.
in regards to what needs to be addressed from that standpoint, but I can go further into the details through a report where we could possibly renew their permit or take other corrective action measures and actually bill them for the work if we had to do it ourselves from that standpoint, so.
I think we can ask her questions at any time once we get Mr. Rapley's
Thank you.
written explanations, and we can come back to him individually or as a group if we need to, and bring it up in the next council meeting if that becomes necessary. So with that in mind, if nobody objects, I'll move to adjourn.
Yes, sir. We have a motion on the table to adjourn, and second. All in favor? Thank you very much for being here, Douglas. I hope you feel better. If you get dizzy or anything, I would really check with the police chief, get a blood pressure check. I've been there, done that. Chief,